Hi, everybody. I'm Kerry Washington. Thank you so much for joining us today. I have the privilege and the honor of moderating a really important conversation today about a very special film, a film that I love so, so much. The film is called The White Tiger. It is a thrilling, important, brilliant film. And I'm joined today by four of the fantastic artists who brought this film to life. The wonderful director, Ramin Bahrani. Thank you so much for being here today. And the three lead actors, my dear, dear friend, Priyanka Chopra Jonas, who's just fantastic in the film. So, so beautiful. Adarsh Gaurav, who blew me away. And also Rajkumar Rao, who has the challenging role of straddling all of the various worlds of this film. And you do so with such elegance and grace. It's really just phenomenally exciting for me to be able to talk to the four of you today about a film that I love so, so much. It's filled with so much creative courage. I really see you pour your entire hearts on this screen. Every cell, I can tell the level of dedication. So I want to know why you felt that this was a story that had to be told and why you wanted to be part of telling it. And I'll start with Ramin.
I had made, I think, one or two movies only, and they were small films with non-actors, Man Push Cart and Chop Shop. And I saw you at an event. You were the first movie star that ever said anything to me about my movie. I never forgot it because I was like, wow, someone saw those movies.
It was important for me to say something because growing up in New York City and being a Black woman, being part of a different marginalized community, Man Push Cart was like, I felt how much you see people. And I obviously saw that again in this film. In particular, I should say, and Priyanka knows this, having lived in India, having lived in South India right after college, mostly in Kerala, but traveled as far north as Bangalore. Bangalore was as far north as I went. So I was screaming to see these locations in the film, but so moved again by your willingness to shine a light on people and stories and lives that so many others want to ignore.
My initial entry point was my friend Arvind Adiga, who's the author of the novel. We were friends from Columbia University. I started sending him screenplays. He started sending me manuscripts. And one day I got an email, I think in 2004, so about 4 years before the novel was published. And the email subject was The White Tiger. And I read it and was just immediately blown away by the novel. Even in a rough form, it was good. Especially the character of Balram was so sarcastic and funny. And as you said, it's not a character normally people would write a book about or make a movie about. When he sent me that, I was just making the first movies, and when the book came out in 2008, he won the Man Booker Prize. I remember I was in London and met him there. I just screened Goodbye Solo, my third film in London.
And you just happened to be there?
Just happened to be there. We met on the street the next morning. And I remember sitting in a hotel room there watching it on the internet when he got the prize. And when I think back to that time, it brings that energy you're talking about into the film because we were both really young. We thought anything was possible. We didn't understand what no meant because we'd heard no so many times. We were just like, whatever, we'll just do our own thing. And those early films were made with that energy. I think he wrote the book in a way that was it had a youthful spirit to it, a rebellious spirit. Sometimes when you're making a movie, me at least, I find myself getting very focused and serious and it's got to be just right. And I had all those things on this movie too. But I also wanted to have fun in a way that I hadn't before in making a movie. When he wrote it and when we were young, we had that feeling and the book had that feeling. Some kind of youthful, you could do anything energy. And what helped me on set, honestly, was my core crew and the three actors here because I arrived and I remember after about a week, I started to think to myself, my God, they're giving so much energy. And they're so good in the movie that I actually thought I have to be better. So I started pushing harder and trying to find okay, what other things could we do? Which other way could the camera do something? What other way could this scene be? And it was somehow inspired by all the actors, but of course the three leads who are here today.
As you talk about your quest for excellence in the project, I see those themes in the project themselves, right? Like Adarsh, you have to embody this character who's reaching for a version of himself that he's never even experienced before. It's just like knowing something more, something better is out there in the way that Ramin is describing. Like there's this undeniable quest to kind of exceed your own understanding of what's possible. Is that part of what drew you to the character?
I was lucky to have read the book when I was 13 or 14 years old. It was one of those incredibly popular books, all over the world. And I think either my mother or my brother bought the book and, it was at home and I read it. I remember being very entertained by the book and, really by this colorful journey that Balram takes where he just dares to dream big. And it's such an inspiring story. It's a dream without boundaries, like full of possibilities. And especially the way Balram describes all the people and draws parallels between people and animals that he compares them with. And I remember being very amused by it and taken in by it because it was something that I would do as a kid. Whenever I'd meet anybody in person, I would always think that this person reminds me of this animal or this vegetable or this fruit. And and I was like, wow, Balram thinks like me,
Adarsh, I would like to know, what animal or fruit do Raj and Priyanka remind you of?
I was going to ask that question, but I was like, I don't know if I want to know what kind of vegetable I am.
You've been put on the spot, Adarsh.
Oh, shit. Maybe I should take some time to answer that.
You have to answer for everyone at the end of the interview. So.
Yeah, keep thinking about that, Adarsh.
All right. When I had the incredible opportunity to audition for the film in 2019, Tess Joseph, the casting director of the film, called me and I was so excited because, this Man Booker Prize winning book was being made into a film and it was being made by Ramin, who was a director that had really blown me away by his work. I was a huge fan and I just took it as an incredible opportunity to jump just right into it and, try to understand the world of Balram and try to become as much as Balram as I could.
Well, I want to talk a little bit about how you all jumped into the skin of these characters. Priyanka, I was thinking about how interesting it was. Like, I am somebody who grew up in an outer borough in New York, and I was watching my friend who was raised in India step into my shoes to be like an other from the outer boroughs in New York, watching violence around you and reaching for something better. What was it like for you to take on this character?
You catch really smart things. But that's why you're such an incredible actor yourself. But truly, honestly, it was actually exactly what you said. I had to, as someone who was raised in India, who understood the complexities of poverty in a country that has, entanglements which are really hard to explain. I had to come in from sort of a little bit of a privileged Western perspective into the story, where I come in and I'm trying to empathize with Balram and telling him that, pull yourself out of your circumstances. I saw my mom being shot at, blah, 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 whereas this guy didn't have food on his plate. And my comparison coming in being completely woke at that point. But when it's convenient to me, I'm not, right? My character steps back and she lets him take the fall. So it was so interesting to get into the complexities of a character that I'm not familiar with because I have been raised in India. But working with Ramin, having lived in America and knowing people and, I went to school in Queens as well. So to kind of understand the inside outside thing, I think really helped me to delve into the gray of my character, whereas she's trying to be right, but humanity is humanity, where, you're going to eventually choose your survival over someone else, no matter how woke you are. And I love that Ramin found the gray within all of our characters, that none of us walked, the path of righteousness or morality. We were all sort of in the grays. And I think that's what made the novel so fascinating.
Yes, this idea of who gets to be centered, who is othered is turned on its head. The idea of who's bad and who's good is turned on its head. The idea of what kind of behavior we should even be rooting for is turned on its head. When we got to the end of the film, my husband was sitting next to me on the couch saying, no, no, no. And I was saying, yes, yes, yes. I thought, this is really interesting. We're going to have to talk about this in couples therapy. This is fascinating. Raj, I want to talk to you because your character really had to embody a lot of what Priyanka is talking about. You, in many ways, had more compassion for Balram than your family members, and yet you still had to kind of live according to the expectations of your family. Will you talk a little bit about how you found those very delicate nuances in the ways that you interacted?
I think a lot goes to Ramin, the way he's written the screenplay and the book itself. I remember reading the book when it came out in 2008, and I really enjoyed what I read. And when I got to that Ramin is making this film, and I read for Ashok, and he wanted me to play Ashok. I was very, very, very thrilled to play this part. I thought Ashok is such a complex character, and he's so human. Somebody who wants to do so much in life, who's so aspirational, and who's just a victim of the system, which so many of us are. So many times we want to just let go, but we cannot because we are just bound with so many limitations and so many expectations of people around that we cannot just sometimes, let go of things. And that's exactly what Ashok is, I thought. He is, for me, I've known people like Ashok. Like I have friends who wanted to do so many things in life, friends like who wanted to be singers, friends who wanted to do something in creative fields, but just could not because they could not just face the families and the family pressure and could not tell them that, I don't want to join your business. I want to do something else. They are the victims. I feel sad for them. And I thought that's how Ashok's life is. He's somebody who's come back to India because he wants to do something for his country. He knows what exactly is happening is wrong. He knows what his family is doing is not right. How they're treating Balram is not right. He tries to tell them, but eventually he just surrenders and becomes one of them, which I thought is such a beauty of this character show.
Yeah, the film is so much about caste and about status. And I wonder, what it was like even to make the choice to put these huge movie stars. Raj and Priyanka are huge movie stars, both in India and globally, and that they would have the humility and the dedication to play these supporting characters. It seems like even in the casting, you're upending these ideas of who is supposed to be centered and who gets their stories told.
Well, they were so generous about it. There wasn't any feeling of anything, but they wanted to make the best movie. They wanted to make the best scenes. And the three of them, actually, they really liked each other, which I think you can feel in the movie.
You really can.
That was awesome. I mean, Adarsh was all of his things were planned. I remember one time I asked him, how would you walk as a servant in the beginning of the film? How might that change after you comb your hair and put on Ashok's clothes? And then how do you walk and move as an entrepreneur? And one day in a callback with another actor, Adarsh would come for the callback. He said, "Excuse me, Rami, do you have some time? I want to show you the walks that I have planned." He had planned 12 walks.
I just got chills.
Yeah.
I just got chills.
We narrowed it down to 2, and I said, just pick the one you like.
If you look at all 3 of these performances, and I'm sure that your environment and ecosystem that you created for them helped with this, all 3 of you are not playing a guy because you each have these extraordinary arcs where you come into the film as one person and you exit having been so changed by each other. Adarsh, will you talk to us a little bit about that, about what it was like for you to create this insanely complicated transformation for your character?
It was very interesting to play the duality of it, and not just the duality of Balram at different junctions, like at the beginning of the story to where he ultimately ends up as, but even while he's the driver, the way you see him change as a person when he's interacting with his family versus when he's interacting with Ashok and Pinky. And for me, it was something very real, because it's something that I noticed all of us doing almost. Like, we're probably very transparent with our friends, but not as much with our family. There's certain things that we can't let our family know about us. It's just the dynamics that really dictate our behavior and the kind of what we feel or think about the other person that really, and the level of trust that we show in the other person that really dictates our behavior and how it changes. So for me, I think it was really very important to understand how I feel about the people that I'm interacting with in a given situation. When I was playing Balram from the village, there were experiences that I had in person that helped me sort of create and understand who he was and how his walk would be. And when it came to the Bangalore Balram, I had no experience in my body. Being this rich, successful businessman, I figured that how Bangalore Balram himself would have created his own personality and his own aura would probably be through books.
Yes.
Right? I mean, he'd probably run away to Bangalore and then bought a bunch of books on body language and studied them, because he is somebody who would do that, on how to project himself very accurately so that he would get the desired respect and
Wow.
the way he would want to be looked at by other people. So I bought myself a bunch of books on body language and like how to make friends and how to influence people. And
he learned mansplaining, and he learned the triangular,
Yes.
he learned
Yes,
all those
yes,
things,
yes.
like create a triangle.
Yeah.
And
like
So
finding the
great.
center of your body, and like
Yes.
if you walk in a certain way, if you walk with your pelvis forward and sort of have this gait, and I just like tried
Swagger.
different, the swagger to your walk, right? And just tried a bunch of different combinations. And I guess it was Ramin who really always encouraged me and pushed me to explore my truth of the characters, and gave me like so many takes to sort of like fail and like pick myself again and try something new. Never discouraged me from touching anything or trying anything that I wanted to at all. So I think all of these put together really helped me find myself in it.
There's so much about this film that I really love. I thought a fun way to kind of point out some of the best scenes would be to ask you guys, what are your favorite moments when you watch the film? What are the moments that you're most proud of?
When I'm absolutely drunk and I go to meet Balram,
Yes.
in his room, and we're sitting under the mosquito net, and we just start chatting and we start jamming, and then we just kind of like improvised. Yeah, we just kind of improvised that, and we started singing. I think that's one of my favorite scenes of the film.
Raj doesn't drink, and I think any actor out there knows it's really hard to play a convincing.
Hard.
He was so convincing as a drunk, and some of the best dialogues in the scene, he's improvised them. There was a scene, but he added all these things that were so good for his character. It really fleshed it out, and I was always encouraging them to do those things. And my favorite scenes in general are ones where the actors improvise things and surprised me in ways that I never would have known about until it happened in the moment. And that's one of the moments that Raj just made some things up that were awesome. And he had planned some of them. He had thought about them, and other ones he made up in the moment. But I didn't know until I saw it, which is my favorite way to see things.
Oh, it's so beautiful because it really is. That's what I mean, Raj, that your character has to embody kind of the fluidity of going back and forth between these worlds. And when you go to his space after he spends what feels like a lifetime learning how to live in your space, it's really so beautiful and humbling and eye-opening to see how little you know about his space. You kind of come in with the sides just being sort of a skeleton, and then you allow a lot of improvisation. But I also know from different research I've done that you prepare enormously. So it feels like, what kind of madness is this, that you prepare every single moment and then you throw it out the window when you get on set? Talk to me about that.
I mean, yeah, I like hyper preparation. I want everything to be just right. And, I pretty much know how I want to do the scene in terms of the shots and what I imagine is going to be the way it would be. But I never tell the actors any of that. I want them to find their own way in the moment. And sometimes the scene is kind of what you imagined and the shots are kind of what you thought. But other times they'll come up with totally new things that you've never thought of that are either just better, and of course you're going to use it, or they're different and they don't really impact the structure of the scene or the movie. They don't destabilize the structure. So why not just do that? And I'll rearrange my shots, and I'll rearrange they can do their own blocking. I don't think I ever told anyone where they should go. They can kind of go wherever they feel like it.
Oh, there's such elegance and confidence in that. I mean, that you come in with so much clarity of vision, but that you leave room as a collaborator really speaks, I think, to really your leadership and your willingness to be a collaborator in the story, to let the story reveal itself as it's supposed to be.
Ramin is such a giving director. He has so much faith in you as an actor that you really have to bring it, because he'll talk to you about it and he'll say, what do you think? Where are we going? What would you wear? What do you think your character would do? Where would you walk? What would she do within any scene? I don't think he's ever told any of us where to go in a scene. And the camera team always knew that they had to just follow us. And, we were always blocked after we decided what we wanted to do. There was such incredible freedom and faith that it just makes you want to step up for him,
I've known Priyanka forever, and I'm such a huge fan. I saw work from you in this film that blew me away. And this is knowing how talented you are. I mean, that scene in the car when the two of you are driving away, Raj and Priyanka, I mean, all three of you, it is extraordinary. You feel, and also we've been waiting for this moment from the beginning of the film because of the way you open it. But when we finally get there, I mean, you walk away from the film feeling the trauma of that moment. And really it's how dedicated each of you were about revealing your hearts in that moment. It's so beautiful, so honest.
Priyanka's so awesome in that. I mean, she's awesome in the whole movie, but in that scene is so powerful. I was editing alone in a room basically because of COVID.
Oh, right.
So I never had a chance to watch the movie with anyone. And, people out there who, directors or editors, at a certain point you start to get a little numb to this.
Yes.
Watched it for months and months and months. And you need people to come into the edit room to watch with them to soak up their energy. And I didn't have that because of COVID, but there were a handful of scenes that, I don't know, even after watching the movie hundreds of times for the editing, that still I found myself moved. And that scene with Priyanka and Raj in the back of the car was one of them. Every time I saw it, I felt like it actually had happened.
Adarsh's face and the choice of having the camera slightly higher, like right on his eyes, when you see his face like totally transform when he reads this confession, that's my favorite scene, that entire thing.
I need to know about that scene, Adarsh. And it's interesting, when you were talking before, you were describing something that Du Bois, who's a great African-American intellectual, he described as double consciousness, which is this thing that African-Americans, that Black folks in this country walk around with, this idea of like, I am who I am, but I also know who I need to perform to be in the context of the powerful class, right? And so that double consciousness is so embedded in the Black experience, which is part of why the film was so moving to me. I think about Isabel Wilkerson's recent work on caste and how much being a Black person in the United States is so similar to the caste system in India. And in that moment, I could not stop talking about that scene with my husband and my parents, this idea of like, you maintained the mask of the smile and the nod that everybody who's lived in India knows so well, that like agreeable nod. And yet we see what's underneath the mask. It's like the mask is so what it needs to be, but inside you is bubbling up. I thought, how is he doing that? Talk to me about that scene and how you found that moment and what it meant for you.
Yeah, it was a little tricky because, as you said, right, like this whole double consciousness theory, it was very similar to that, the way I was thinking about it, because there's this piece of information that's dropped on me like a bomb. And there's so many emotions that come together, right? There's the feeling of suffocation. There's the feeling of rage. There's the feeling of, why are they doing this to me? And all of these things together, right? I was just responding and reacting to how the scene was happening and how it was playing out, how Vijay sir, who plays Mukesh in the scene, how he was playing the scene, how Raj was standing next to me, how he was feeling it. So I think I was just feeding off other people's energy and sort of not able to express what I really want to at the same time. So it was all of that coming together. But I also feel that it was Ramin and Paolo, our cinematographer, the way they decided to really come up close and film it. Like there's nothing in between you, like it feels like you're in the room.
Well, he couldn't see, it was like he couldn't see the other.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh no, don't tell me this was one of those moments where you were acting with like an X by the,
exactly.
No, you were acting to tape. We always say acting is reacting, but when you're reacting to tape, you're really on your own.
Yeah. It's like a monologue there. So,
yeah.
So Ramin said that he wants to film this scene from me, and he told me this right before the scene. And I said, but Ramin, I can't see I can't see Mukesh. And he said, well, this is one of those things, one of those moments where you really have to find it. You're like, I'm going to help you, but like, so there's this piece of tape, and right behind the camera was Mukesh. I had to focus so hard on the tape that I started seeing Mukesh's face on the tape. Like, it was superimposing his face on the tape, and then it was just reacting to the audio, or like his voice, basically. None of us were ever allowed to see any playbacks. Like, so we had absolutely no idea how we were doing or how we were going. And after this scene, I really wanted to see the scene, because I was like, man, I don't know how it's come, because I felt it. I felt everybody else in the room like really involved, and I felt the weight of the scene. I was still dying to see it, and I was like, Ramin, can you? And he said, just trust me, it looks really good. And then when I saw the film, I knew it came out really well.
It's only like, I think, 4 or 5 shots, the scene. It's like moving POV that becomes a wide and over the shoulder on Mukesh. I didn't want to be anything but over the shoulder for him. And then actually for this shot, Adarsh, you may remember, for the first few takes, I didn't come close to you.
Yeah, you didn't.
Yeah, because I wanted you to have the experience of doing it with the actor. Then I gave you then I gave him the bad news. Now I'm going to block everything.
The moment we walk into the film with you, the look on Raj's face, that something awful is about to happen. I mean, it's so beautiful, Raj. You say so much in that corner without saying anything. It's really tremendous. It's such a truly powerful moment.
I like the moment right after it too, because he's out in the hallway. It's a high angle, very slow push in, and he's just supposed to go to the elevator. That's it.
Yeah.
But then Adarsh turned around and went back to the door. As if he was going to knock and try to get a further explanation.
As if he was going to say something or stand up for himself.
Yeah.
It was so. I remember watching it. I didn't know he was going to do it. It was so sad. And then we wanted to shoot this scene in this courtyard, and Paolo had an idea to shoot from a high angle. And Adarsh said, "What should I do?" I said, "I don't know. You should do whatever you feel. But do you see this tall grass here?" And he said, "Yes." I said, "What does it remind you of?" And he said, "The village." I said, "Me too. Why don't you see if there's a way you can use that feeling in the scene?" And then he did what he did, which I found very powerful. This moment where he curls up and hides inside that memory or something from his childhood. I don't know what it meant, but it seemed so powerful when he did it.
I mean, it's so clear how deeply invested each of you were in the world of the film, so that you could take these risks and have these discoveries along the way, because you really were like viscerally connected to the hearts and minds and lives of these characters. And the journeys are not just, when I know, Adarsh, a lot of people are talking about this sort of rags to riches idea, but layered on top of that is this descent into insanity as well. Like, as you're becoming empowered, you're also losing your effing mind. And it's just beautiful. I don't mean to put that out. That's not a judgment. I just mean that you do commit an act that is outside of normal, acceptable human behavior. And each of you you go into these emotional spaces that are it's just so much vulnerability. So beautiful. I want to ask each of you what it is that you want audiences to walk away from the film thinking and feeling. And just to say, obviously, the film has had such a tremendous impact on audiences. The tiny, just a hint of some of the awards. The WGA, you've received Best Adapted Screenplay, BAFTA long list for Best Film, Director, Adapted Screenplay, Leading Actor, Supporting Actress, Cinematography, Editing, Independent Spirit Award nomination for Best Male Lead. I mean, it's just, obviously the film has been #1 on Netflix globally. It's resonating with audiences in Africa, in Europe, in all over Asia, obviously, in the US. So for you, when you think about all of these eyeballs and hearts that you've captured, what is it that you want audiences to walk away with in their hearts and minds? And I'd love to start with Raj.
For me, I think for people just to understand that how, normally in our day-to-day life, how we just ignore people when we just walk down on the streets and we just don't even realize what the other person is going through. And the way we treat and this class divide it's so universally present everywhere in the world. It's not only about India. I think it's everywhere. and just to have a little more empathy and just to live with a little more compassion. I just hope that people learn something from our film and they take back what we're trying to tell them.
I think that's so beautifully said. Because I think a lot about that statement that the universal is in the specific. And this film is such a beautiful example of that because it's so filled with the specificities, the nuances that are unique to India and the beautiful culture and the complex class and caste system there. And yet everyone has an entry point to this film. We all know what it feels like to dream. We all know what it feels like to see injustice around us. That experience of seeing a community and realizing you need to look more, look further, look more deeply with more heart is something that all of us can be invited into that experience. So I love the way that you said that, Rajan. And I guarantee you at least these eyeballs and this heart had that experience for sure. Priyanka, how about you? I mean, and the fact that you're producing, why did you want to executive produce? And as executive producer and an actress, what do you want people to walk away thinking and feeling?
I remember when I first started seeking work in America and I just started working on Quantico, I'd heard a lot of chatter around the fact that, mainstream movies don't work internationally with brown and black actors, like you were the first African-American actress to ever lead a network TV show. And that was with Scandal, it blows my mind even now to think about how late that happened. But like at that time, to me, I did not see our Indian people represented in Hollywood in mainstream entertainment.
That's right.
And when I heard that the movie was being adapted by Netflix, I wanted to offer my services as an EP to make sure that it doesn't get typecast into an indie movie or into a genre movie, which usually ends up happening when you have an all-Indian, star cast or an Iranian-American director, or even though Ramin was probably the most accomplished of all of us in the international scheme of things. And I just really wanted to be able to help to, make sure that people get as many eyeballs as they can, where you can see that, mainstream entertainment does not need to be defined by a specific ethnicity, and we can be a part of that conversation. And as an actor, just exactly what Raj said, I think that the fact that we are so desensitized as a world, as privileged society specifically, to the rest of the world. I mean, how many times is it that we've driven past homeless people and not even looked at it, or, not been aware of what's happening in our community? And empathy becomes so selective. We don't have the ability to have a larger lens and recognize our privilege. So I hope that watching the movie sort of makes people uncomfortable and is sort of a mirror into our own selves and about improving our own selves with human beings instead of creating the divide that we're seeing globally around the world. So to me, both of those things were, I think, achieved within seeing how people have reacted to the movie, and I feel so proud of it.
You should. It's really, I agree with you. This is such an enormous achievement. As soon as the film was over, I texted both you and Ava DuVernay, who's also a producer, to say like, holy moly, like, what is this beautiful film I just watched? It's just tremendous and so important. And I'm really deeply grateful that you have devoted yourself to telling this story at a moment when this divide is actually increasing because of COVID, right? The haves and the have-nots have become the vast canyon between has just widened and become so much more evident. And we must pay attention in the way that Ramin forces us to in this film, in the way that you all force us to. Adarsh, how about you? What do you want people to walk away thinking and feeling other than how brilliant you all are?
There's a scene in the film where Balram is in his classroom and the teacher asks him this question, and it's like the election manifesto, and he's like, "What does the chief minister of this state say?" And he says that anybody in any corner of this country can become the chief minister of India. So I think that very beautifully sums up the film for me. It's just the ability and the want and the desire to dream something big in your life and then going the distance to make it happen. And what's beautiful is that when such a film comes out and you have all these people from all over the world reaching out to you, and like that's what I feel about this. all of us are trapped in our own rooster coops in some way. It's, I mean, irrespective of what caste, class, social strata we belong to, it's all of us find ourselves trapped in some way or the other, and we all have Ashoks and Pinky Madams and Balrams and Mukeshes inside of us. All these characters are so real, you know. You relate to each one of them individually at another level. And when people tell me that, you know, it helped me to break free in my own way. It gave me that courage to sort of pursue my dream, or sort of speak up for myself in some way. I think that is what I eventually wanted from the film, and I think it just so beautifully does that, you know, and it just gives people hope and gives people courage to shape their life as they wanted it to be, to live their life as they wanted to, without sort of thinking about what's going to stop them, or what the consequences are, or what my individual boundaries are, what my society, what the boundaries are that are imposed on me through society. Yeah, I think that's what I really wanted from the film, and I think it just beautifully does that.
Yeah, you reminded me of that really fantastic moment when Balram talks about the power of the yellow man and the brown man going forward. And it just, I mean, I got chills watching it, because you just think there is a resilience and a strength in our communities that is so undying. You know, you don't read the history books and read like, and then Indian people gave up, or like, and then Black people called it quits. Like, that's just not part of the story. Like, we persevere. And I love that you talked about that moment in school. It's really powerful, because I do think, like, as young people, we are told and we believe that anybody can be anything. And then the film also points out the systems that make that difficult, right? That there are systems in place that make that belief feel impossible, and that we have to meet those systems, and that your character doesn't always do so in the most ethical ways. But we fight for you. We believe for you because we know you deserve it. You know, I always say, like, for me, I'm born in the neighborhood that I was born up in, that I was raised in. I wasn't supposed to have the life that I have today. And I want to live in a world where my original zip code does not determine the rest of my life. I don't want to be one of the lucky ones. I want everybody to have everybody that I came from should have access to the life that I live now. I shouldn't be an exception. And I felt that watching you. I just really felt that same longing for you. Was so powerful. Ramin, will you tell us, you have the final word on this. What for you is, what is it that you hope audiences will walk away thinking and feeling from this masterpiece of a film that you've given us?
Pretty tricky to say, because everyone gave such good answers. And you know, I don't know if I want to say what people should think or feel. Something that Arvind's so great at is making all these incredible ideas that these three great actors said. He makes the damn thing so funny and fun.
Yes.
You know, and I had never had that experience in my films. Some of my films are harder, or they're just different. And the fact that he did it all with a sense of humor, again, it reminds me of when we were young, and there was something, you could tackle these things with that kind of youthful energy. And I like that, because maybe we need some of that energy now. You just talked about a bunch of systems that maybe need to be rethought or dismantled, and some of that's happening. But when I think of the last shot of the film, you know, I like to remember those guys standing there. You know, maybe we got to dismantle some things and try again.
Yeah, so beautiful.
Kerry, I want to know Adarsh's answers about fruit and vegetables.
Oh yes, that's right. That's right.
I think all you guys are mangoes, because mangoes is my favorite fruit. And but yet at the same time, they come in like such different shapes,
different
and
kinds
sizes,
of mangoes.
different kinds of mangoes, right? I mean, especially in India, because you have, like, depending on the region you're from, you have like your Alfonso and your Beganpalli and your Langda and all of that. I don't know if Kerry really, yeah. So, but Kerry, hey, you've lived in Kerala, right? So I'm sure you've had like all these
various
different mangoes.
kinds of mangoes.
Yeah,
So I'm actually allergic to mango, but I'll still be.
Oh my God, Adarsh.
But I'll just accept that I am what I cannot be. And
Kerry, you're a beautiful strawberry. That's what you are. You're a lovely strawberry, rare, juicy, and gorgeous.
You're good at this game. Your answer was awesome.
This is such a delight. It's really an honor. I mean, I really could go on for hours and hours. I love this film. I'm deeply grateful to each of you. From artist to artist, I thank you for your dedication, for the sacrifice, for your courage, for your creativity, just for your raw talent and generosity in sharing it with us. I'm so, so grateful. And I just hope that you are rewarded endlessly for it.
Thank you, Kerry.
Thank you for your grace.
Thank you so much.